Player Will.
Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. This video's about a week late, hopefully better late than never though. This is the YuRiPa Vision card that was released last week alongside Yuna as part of the Final Fantasy X-2 collaboration, so I want to give some thoughts. If you have pulled for it, maybe reinforce that decision, and if you haven't pulled for it, maybe convince you why you should or shouldn't. And so kicking things off, we always start at looking at the card itself. And so this is a physical stat-oriented card with 151 attack as the primary stat on it. It does encapsulate Greatsword, Gun, and Sword Warriors as the three classes on here. Nothing terribly crazy for the unit bestowed effects, it's just some HP and attack. Those are relatively low priority. But the party effects are 18% agility, the 20 crit damage, and the 20% physical wide resistance the larger the AoE of the ability. Now there is also a dual effect here for a 15% critical hit rate, which this is a main slot vision card, and so you will get the full benefit of that 15% for any kind of duel related content, whether it be arena, grand arena, quick pick, class match, all of those things. Now just looking, kind of doing the eyeball test here to get a feel for some of the units on the card, there are still a lot of more recently competitive units here. I have them obviously circled, but even some older units like A2 or even the Astraeus of the Bolt, you may still be using in several different kinds of iterations of your Greatsword teams. But I think this is, statistically speaking, a very strong party effect card for these three classes. But let's talk about how valuable the agility percent actually is for each of them. Now, not including this YuRiPa card, this is what each class has currently for agility percent. And Gun, this is actually a very welcome addition for a vision card, where right now it's only the Bloody Road that they have for a vision card, and the overlaps there are only Mace and Sword Knight, so definitely a little bit limited for team building. Obviously, different story though when it comes to Greatsword, who currently has 6 already existent agility percent vision cards, and even Warrior, who has 4 agility percent vision cards. And so both Greatsword and Warrior are kind of like all set already when it comes to agility percent in particular, but this doesn't diminish the value of the card still. I'll circle back on this in a second, but one of the interesting things already between Greatsword and Warrior, not only do they have 6 and 4 agility cards respectively, but they have 3 of the 4 in common. So they're basically all set when it comes to any kind of Greatsword or Warrior intermingling when it comes to the agility percent. But I still think there's some valuable use for this card, broadly speaking, outside of just the application for Gun, but that's really the primary emphasis. This is definitely a Gun first vision card. And this is the same stat I used for the Jaden vision card when it came out, that this is a good Gun card, but there are no class overlaps currently between the new Jaden vision card and the Yuna vision card. They are complementary stats, though, that they do not repeat, and that Gun teams can obviously use both of these and go for some kind of triple gunner team or even a rainbow team, or go for some kind of tank or support in between, which we have been seeing now that they're both live. But my general thoughts overall, gun-oriented card aside, this is a great offensive bump for that team with the 20 crit damage and the 15% crit rate in dual modes. Honestly, even particular for Yuna, who her follow-up attack is very much crit reliant to maximize that damage. This card absolutely aids in that in a material way. And although it doesn't offer much for Greatsword and Sword Warrior as far as overlaps go, I actually think this is a very valuable defensive option for those teams, where when focusing on the physical AoE wide res here, right now the 3 existing agility cards, sure, they already have agility covered, bam, we know that. But if you're actually looking at these cards in particular, 2 out of the 3 are magic-oriented vision cards, so you typically would prefer some kind of magic-oriented unit in that Greatsword or Sword Warrior team. But even then, I don't think they have the same defensive attributes that the YuRiPa card does, where the Hyo card, sure, has magic resistance. That's one kind, that's obviously fine. And the Soul Vision card here has the chain resistance, which is kind of whatever. It's nice when you have it, but I don't think you're really team building looking for it. That the YuRiPa Vision card giving this Greatsword and Sword Warrior the 20 physical wide res is actually kind of powerful, particularly when you consider that those units, as of late, have been rather stout, brawlier, bruiser kind of units that they absolutely would eat up this physical wide resistance. So although they already have the agility stat covered, I actually do still think there's some good value for them. Again, particularly from the perspective that this is another attack-oriented vision card, whereas 2 out of their 3 overlaps are magic-oriented. Which ultimately brings us down to the question, should you pull? And actually my answer is yes. Obviously goes without saying, pull this card if you are playing for the Jaden and Yuna teams. This is kind of a must. Agumi is sort of resetting Missile at the moment, and this is obviously part of that initiative. And while Great Sword and Staff Devout are already well covered from the agility percent, this new AoE physical wide res does have some inherent value. And although some of the more recent units are more of the like select 2 style, or even gone away from the diamond shape and have gone back to more stereotypical like small cross shapes, which don't get the full benefit of the wide resistance, that's going to shift over time. And that's honestly one of my biggest things when it comes to these vision cards. Is it limited or not? And we've seen time and time again, dozens of times, that these limited vision cards have a very long shelf life of when they might be valuable. And just because it doesn't seem apparent today, the need for a card like this, doesn't mean that in 6 months from now, or 8 months from now, or heck, we've seen cards even 2 or 3 years later come back into the fold as really valuable core pieces of certain teams. This could certainly be in that conversation too, particularly because it's one of the few that connects Gun to Great Sword and Sword Warrior. And while historically Gun hasn't been all that great as of late, we literally can't predict the future. For all we know, Gun could be the meta for 2025, and maybe this is the first piece that you miss out on if they go that route. So to me, obviously it's a no-brainer. If you're going for the missile team, this is a yes. But even from the limited perspective, I do place value on that 20% physical wide resistance. And I think Great Sword and Sword Warrior teams are two classes that have proven that they can be meta teams. And so I do think this has some good future value as well for as the game continues to change and evolve. But that's my thoughts overall. If you've already pulled for it, I'm sure you're getting some good results with Yuna because of it. But if you haven't, maybe this can help give you some clarity whether you should or not, address maybe some of that FOMO. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll talk to y'all later.